Well, hello everyone, and welcome to my Revolutionary Girl Utena rewatch. Um, this video is going to cover the first two episodes of the anime, and I'm just going to be talking about everything that comes to mind because I'm trying to understand exactly what happens in this anime. So, to start off with my background, so I started watching back in July of last year, so July of 2021, if you're watching this in the future. And I watched it dubbed because I initially looked up, what do people think, the dub or the sub for Revolutionary Girl Utena? And everyone overwhelmingly said to watch the sub, and they said that the dub is one of the worst dubs of all time. And I could not, for the life of me, find any legal way to watch this in the sub. As far as I could tell, back in at least middle of last year, the only way to watch Utena was, at least in Australia, was to get to actually buy the dub on iTunes, which I did. I paid whatever $20-$30. I think it's the only TV series, or literally like TV series anime. It's a very limited number of movies that I've ever bought. That shows my dedication to it, I guess. But I watched it in dubbed, and that's why. So I heard about it because I was essentially just looking for anime to watch, and there was some list on Reddit, which was, I don't know, some pretentious list about the most critically acclaimed anime of all time, and I think Revolutionary Girl Utena was number 2, I think, like behind Evangelion. So I thought, this is pretty interesting. I quickly Googled it, and I thought the character design for Utena looked really cool, so I watched it. Knowing literally nothing about it. So I didn't know it was symbolic or anything, and so essentially everything went over my head. Now, obviously, when I started watching it, say like 2 or 3 episodes in, I started to realize that, okay, this isn't really about the plot. This is more of a kind of thematic, symbolic kind of abstract piece. And I tried to figure a lot of stuff out, but I would say like 60% of the stuff that was happening really just went over my head. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well made. The stuff I did actually come to understand, I thought was really well done. I remember particularly the parts with the elevator, where you've got like the breakdown of each of the characters, and just like the character focused stuff in there. I thought that was really great. I loved Nanami. Nanami was a great character. Obviously, I liked all the characters, but Nanami, I just loved every scene with her. It was just so funny and great, and sometimes poignant. I thought the music was great. I don't know. I like this anime a lot. But I wanted to rewatch it just because I feel like I don't really rewatch any anime. I don't think I've ever watched any now that comes to mind. But Utena is something that I feel has the potential to become like a favorite of mine, potentially my favorite, at least another 10 out of 10. So I am going to rewatch it, and I thought if I'm going to rewatch it and try and understand it, then I might as well make it worthwhile and record my thoughts in a video. There is also the movie. I think it's Adolescence of Utena or something, and I've seen the first 20 minutes of it because it was on YouTube, I think, like when I finished the anime last year, but I just never finished it. So when I finally finish this, I hope to watch that for the first time and kind of give my, not rewatch, but first watch through thoughts on that. But now, I guess, past the introduction, getting to my overall thoughts on these first 2 episodes that I watched again. I liked it a lot. I thought the production elements were really what stood out, more so than the story, because there isn't really much of a story going on here so far. So, like, when I say production elements, I mean, I thought the directing was really unique and really interesting to see, especially for something that, I don't know if it is low budget, but it kind of felt low budget, but they really made it work with what they had available, I guess. I think the music is particularly standout. This is a soundtrack I've just listened to on loop for many times. It's probably my favorite soundtrack of all time. And I just love hearing it in the show. I thought the art was great. It's not the most complicated or anything, and the animation is obviously quite not dated, but there isn't really much animation, but there are moments obviously of Sakuga, like when they're showing that the fighting thing in the arena, and they reuse that a million times, but I just like it. The animation is fine, the art is fantastic, and I like the dub. I think the dub is fantastic. The voice acting is great, and it really feels. Maybe it's a product of its time, but it feels very subdued, and people aren't like it feels kind of like you're watching like an ASMR kind of thing, where it's like very subtle in the way they speak, and they don't have to worry about like projecting their voice or anything. Like I kind of like how it's done. Now I don't know, I can't speak to how accurate the translation is compared to the sub because I just haven't seen it, but I think that'll probably be a problem going forward, just because like I should probably state that I guess what I'm doing here is kind of analyzing a particular interpretation of Utena, that is the interpretation that the dub script made when they dubbed it. So I guess I should put that out there as well. Now, still in regard to overall thoughts, I am still very confused. So I've seen the first 2 episodes now, and a lot of the stuff still feels pretty symbolic, and that's not a problem. But I think the problem is that I don't know what the symbols are meant to represent. Like, for instance, there's a lot of flowers and stuff, or roses particularly, and I don't know what a rose is meant to symbolize, like in like history or something. Like, I don't know if there's some symbol out there that it's very well known. Oh, obviously roses are associated with blah, 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 and I've just never come across it. So I think that's an issue I run into a lot in the show, and I still have run into it now in my rewatch. But anyway, that's what I'm hoping to address through this eventually. And if there is anyone watching this, which I know Utena has a very small viewer base compared to a lot of other stuff, so if there is anyone watching this, then please let me know in the comments about any notes you have. I will read them all, and I'll be very interested to see, because I haven't really watched a lot of analysis or anything. I've maybe seen like 2 videos on Utena, so I'd be interested to see what other people think about certain interpretations. But let's start off with episode 1. So what happens in this is that you get the introduction to the school, which I haven't written down, but I'm pretty sure it was Otori Academy. And you meet Utena. You then get Wakaba's... a lot of my pronunciations are also going to be how they pronounce it in the dub, I guess. But Wakaba's letter gets pinned up. Saionji slaps Anthy. Utena duels Saionji, and the episode ends with Anthy telling Utena that she belongs to her as the Rose Bride. So, I guess the first thing to really talk about is Utena and everything going on with her. So, firstly, we start off the episode with her backstory, which has a really cool art style with just basically shadow people, where you can't actually see their features or anything, it's just blacked out, but you see their clothing and hair and stuff, and I thought it was really cool. But I don't really know what's going on here, because I know that it's revealed twice in the show, where you've got first, it's revealed that Saionji and Toga are somehow related to this backstory. At least Utena thinks that at one point. But then later on, it's revealed that this prince actually is Akio, and Dios is Akio, the same person. So I don't know. I don't really know what's going on here. If this is an actual recollection, or if it's like the childish like memory that Utena has of some faded thing. That's why everything is blacked out. But I don't know. It's interesting. Looks cool, which is a lot of what's going on here. It just looks cool, so I like it. So we get Utena's introduction, where she's marching to the school, and we get this grand marching music, and we don't see her immediately. We get like a top-down view of everything that's like all her angles essentially, before we get the front reveal of her design, and I think it's really cool. And the music does a good job of kind of setting the grandiosity of her reveal, and how she's different from everyone and stands out, and it's cool. And speaking of her reveal, I thought her design was very great. Like her color scheme, particularly her pupils, and I guess not pupils, but like the kind of like colored region of your eye. Like it's really cool designed. Just all of the characters in this show. It's a really interesting art style. And yeah, I don't know, it just looks cool. And I guess style is kind of substance in a way. Like when it comes to Utena, like just something looking cool can really, I don't know, it goes a long way. To making it feel more worthy of, I don't know, being respected. This is a dumb way of saying, like, I like it because it looks cool. Anyway, so the only other note I've got from Utena, at least in these 2 episodes, is that at the end of the fight, or I guess only for episode 1 is what I'm talking about here. At the end of the fight with Saionji, We get the line from Dios, little one, growing up alone in such deep sorrow, never lose that strength or nobility, even when you are grown. And I think it's kind of unique to when you're watching it a second time, where initially it comes across as a good message of like, stay strong and be true to who you are. And I really like it. It works in that way. But then when you see it the second time and you know that Dios, or I guess Akio, is manipulating Utena and kind of grooming her, and it's gross to hear. And I like it. Like, it's such a cool like change in perspective when you rewatch it. And I guess another thing of like how in that, like when he's saying that he's the power of Dios is like taking over her during the battle, but I don't think it's literal. I mean, obviously nothing in Utena is literal, but you could say that, okay, he comes down and some mystic power gives her the strength to fight and blah blah blah. But I think what it really is just her inner self wanting to fight, like Dios told her to. Like, that's why we hear the words. It's not actually some spirit coming down that even Seiyunji or Anti could see or something. It's just her realizing that, or remembering that memory and using that to fuel her power, and that's what wins in the end. It's just the fact that this powerful like line that he spoke to her is what's giving her the strength to fight, and it's just so great because it's so gross, and it's just, she thinks it's helping her, but really it's not, and I don't know, it's one of the reasons why Utena is so great. Love it. Like, it's not something to be, this is what I've wrote, it's not something to be proud of. It just shows how deeply entrenched this manipulation goes, and I like it a lot. So that's Utena for episode 1. We also get a bit of Wakaba. The first thing is that she refers to Utena as he and her boyfriend, but I think what it is that she's, it feels like she's living out a fantasy, because when she snaps back to reality, she starts referring to her as she. I don't know, it's a small interesting, detail where, it just provides some, like, I don't know, because I know later on we get a bunch of characters with the elevator where we kind of see what kind of motivates them or what their issues are, or, some adolescence kind of issues. So I'm interested to see if this, like, kind of fantasy thing where she's kind of seeing Utena as her boyfriend, and interested to see if that comes back in that elevator and what her kind of issue was, or if it'll more be related to Seiyunji, because that's kind of what happens in this episode, particularly with her letter. But that's everything I've got for Wakaba. There's also Anthe. The note I've got is that I'm just so confused about her, because I know at the end of the story it's revealed that she is a witch. I think it's revealed. Let me just say that I don't really remember this, because it's quite confusing. But I think it's revealed that she's a witch who's locked away, by the hatred of the world or something. Because I know there's like a bunch of spears that like shoot into her and kill her or something. Which kind of explains why she's so robotic here. And it is kind of what I assumed before I started rewatching. Like, oh, okay, that's why when I was looking back at these episodes, oh yeah, she's probably robotic in those situations. But rewatching now, there are a lot of moments where she's showing genuine emotion. Where, like, what have I got? When she's looking at Utena in shock, when Utena is about to fight Seiyunji and she just says, oh, I just have to beat him, right? That's a moment of actual emotion that Anthony's showing, of just shock. She also smiles when Utena explains that, I just won the rematch against Seiyunji for Choo-Choo. So there is something going on. Like, Anthe isn't just a robot who's sealed away as like a witch. She is a person, and she does show emotion. So I'm interested to see if this ties together somehow by the end. And another note I made about Anthe is that we meet her in the sunlit garden, which is, I just never realized that, like, I know the song is called The Sunlit Garden, and I know it's a big deal in the show, like, over the whole course of the thing. I just never realized it was an actual sunlit garden. Like, it's just essentially a greenhouse made of glass, and the garden is lit by sun. I thought it was interesting. And it's also shaped like a birdcage, so it's a very symbolic, like, oh, Anthe's stuck in here, and I don't know, cool symbolism, cool. Utena is known for its symbolism, I imagine. Has a lot of it, and that was a cool little one that I actually picked up on. So those are all the characters in here, in the first episode. But there is also the school itself. So I'd never noticed this before, but it's built in a forest. It's just weird. Like, it doesn't look like a school. But I mean, it is, and I don't know, cool design. Um, I also noticed that everything has roses on it. So buildings, poles, stained glass windows, the water fountain, the floor patterns, the rulebook for the school. Um, Essentially, if you look hard enough in any shot, you'll probably see a rose. It's very interesting. I don't know what the rose symbolizes. Um, I would assume it's like romance or love or something, but I don't know at this point. Um, the school is also very symmetric. Like when you see it in the bird's eye view, like in the introductory shot, I don't know, you see left-right symmetry a lot, and it's very, I don't know, perfectly designed, like in a nice, neat, perfect world. And maybe that's meant to imply that it's not actually perfect, and it's like some symbolism there, but I don't know. It was cool. I really like just the designs in the show. Like the art and everything looks so cool. Then we get a scene with the student council in this episode 1, and we see that Mickey. Essentially, my question is just what's going on with Mickey? Like he's writing, or Mickey. I don't know how they pronounce it, but what's going on? He's writing in his green diary. Like, what is he writing? I know the diary. I remember is his like actual diary. So he's writing something in it during the meeting, and he always uses his stopwatch, and I don't know what his timing. Maybe I can figure it out. I started writing like the times for it, but I can't find any connection. But that's all the main stuff. I've also got some miscellaneous stuff. So there's a lot of shots where you've got 4 flowers in the corners of some scenes, or 4 roses, I guess, every time. And I've listed what they are. So there's times where it's a pink rose, which is for Utena's backstory. When we're seeing a like showcase of Utena's uniform, the first time she sees Anthe, and when she sees Anthe in her dueling red dress. That's a pink rose. Now, I would assume a pink rose is symbolizing romance, so I can see how it would symbolize that in the case of when she sees Anthe. Like, oh, wow, look at this woman. I don't know. There's also white roses when we're seeing Toga and Seonji, and when we see the pattern on Utena's ring. So I think this white rose is somehow associated with Akio, or at least the student council, because we've got Toga and Seonji. So I'm interested to see how that tracks throughout the show. We also get the blue roses with Mickey and the orange flowers with Juri. And I think that's just purely because of their color designs, like Mickey's blue hair and Juri's orange hair. In terms of directing, there was one particular shot in episode 1 that I thought was really cool. Maybe I'll put it on screen. I don't know what type of editing I'm doing for this, but if I do, I probably won't, because that's a problem with Utena actually, is that it's so hard to actually take screenshots and like get some footage, because I do have to watch it through iTunes and they got like a bunch of DRM protection or something. But anyway, we get this really cool panning zooming shot when Utena sees Seonji slap Anthe, and he kind of like zooms up to her looking at the window, and I don't know, it's really cool. It's like a 2D shot that they've like, I don't know how they did it, but it just looks really cool. Like it's angled and kind of looks 3D, but it's not. Anyway, the mid-card music was peak. Like it just looks, it just sounds so great. It's probably like some classic song that I just don't know of, but I'm going to think it's just unique to Utena, and I love it. We also get the 2 silhouette girls that are going to be like a motif throughout the story. I don't know what they are at all. I do like them. Like it's a very interesting, like creepy kind of visual. And I don't know if this is just a dub thing, but they do sound very similar to Anthe and Utena. So I wonder if it's kind of reflecting those two, like some particular aspect of their psyche. I don't know. Now, even if it is just a dub thing, like everything is open to interpretation, so I would particularly like I'd be happy with that, even if it is just the dub choice of their voice actors. But another thing I noticed is that the arena where they fight, it looks like the thought elevator from Code Geass. Now I'm sure I know in Code Geass that's used as a like connection to God in a way, or like a pathway to heavens or something. Now maybe this is like some Japanese like folklore or myth or something that I just don't know about. But I thought it was an interesting connection between those two things. So in terms of symbolism that I noticed in this episode, I did talk about already the sunlit garden and how it's like a bird cage, but there is also, like I guess I also talked about this, the roses, and them representing love, I would assume. Um, and there is the fact that when you knock the rose off your chest is when you lose the duel. Now, I don't know how that relates to love, and like your love is not as strong as someone else's or something. I don't know, but I think I also do think that Utena's rose, at least in this first episode when she was fighting Seirenji, was white, which is the color for the student council and Akio. So yeah, I don't know. So the actual duels themselves, I know they're completely metaphorical. Like I know later on you get like a bunch of cars and desks and stuff that just seems impossible. But right now they do seem pretty literal. Like they are just fighting with swords and they knock off a flower and win. So I don't know what I'm interested to see what the first duel is, where that like symbolism kind of becomes more obvious. The song choices are also interesting. So I've just included this for both episode 1 and 2, but for the first episode where there's a duel, you get the like when, where, that song where you go like when, where, who, which, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what the hell this song is saying. I'm sure I'll hear it a lot, so I'll probably figure it out over time. But the second one, in the second duel in episode 2, that one's a lot more obvious. It's just a song where they're listing a bunch of like periods for life. So you got like the Cambrian and the Silurian, and etc. Yeah, interesting. The music choice is going to be something I'm very much going to keep track of, because I know that it is such a big deal with that particular arena. So yeah, overall with this episode 1, that's everything I've got. I thought it's really great. Like it sets up a lot of stuff. It really sets a good tone, like a very eerie kind of tone. It creates a lot of questions, which I like. And the music is just great. I think I'm going to say that for every episode. The music is just the highlight of the show. Probably my favorite aspect of just the show in general. Yeah, so now I'm moving on to episode 2. So Utena moves into her room with Anthy. Seirenji shows up and slaps Anthy, and Seirenji duels Utena. And then the power of Dios leads to Utena's victory. So we get a little bit of Wakaba. Oh, I need to get better at pronouncing that. Where near the beginning of the episode, we get she shows a book called Magnolia Waltz to Utena, and she says that this is a story about a girl who was in love with a guy, but then the guy rejects her. But the next day she gets over it, sees another guy, and falls in love with him. And she used to think that it was lame and stupid, but now she loves it. So I don't have anything to say here because we haven't got too much from Wakaba. But I imagine this is going to play in with the kind of fantasy that she lives, and probably what will be her kind of issue to overcome or kind of give into during the elevator kind of arc. The only thing I can think about now is maybe there's just like a representation of her getting over Seirenji and now just falling for someone else. But I don't know. Not too much going on in these 2 episodes with her. In this episode 2, we also get more of the student council. So we get the full speech, which is, if it cannot break out of its shell, the chick will die without being born. We are the chick, the world is our egg. If we don't crack the world shell, we will die without truly being born. Smash the world shell for the revolution of the world. Now this is a speech we'll get, I don't know, probably 30 times in this show. Every time we see the student council later on, we'll get it. And I love it, and I have no idea what it means. Let me think. So, revolution. Obviously, the show is called Revolutionary Girl Utena, and it's about her being kind of a different kind of girl, but what does the student council want revolution? I don't know, this is something I'm really interested in, because I don't know what Akio wants. Like, I know it was related to freeing the Rose Bride, and that maybe if you free her, it'll revolutionize the world, but I don't really know what revolutionize the world even means, and I'm sure it's symbolic for some, I don't know, to love or something, because I know this show is all about love. I don't know. I just want to keep track of this speech. Maybe it'll become clearer over time. But there was a one. I was so glad to finally realize one symbol. That was the messages during the student council scene. They throw the messages of the world into a pile of cards they're playing with, and it's just a subtle hint or symbol that Akio is playing a game with them, just like they're playing a game with the cards. Cute little symbol, and I like it. And again, we get Mickey timing and writing, and I don't know what the hell's going on there, but maybe someone does, so let me know if you do. So, beyond the student council, now we have a bit of Anthy stuff here, where she cleans Utena's room in a matter of, like, at most hours. And I don't know, it's still weird. Like, I always thought that was weird the first time, weird and creepy. And I think it's still weird and creepy. I don't know if it's maybe just a gag, like a comedic gag, and I'm not meant to read too much into it, but I don't know. Strange. We get some really neat directing and, like, creepy directing when Utena asks Anthy what's going on, like, what is this ring? And we get, it's like just really ominous music, and the camera is panning like left to right, or right to left, I think in this case. And the colors are just dark, and like even like Utena is all pink, for instance. Like all the two characters are just single color palettes. It's just a really interesting choice to direct, and it's really effective at being creepy, and being more in line with what the show will be in its final arc, where you get a lot more of that kind of directing. But that's all I've got for Anthy here. The next character is Seonji, which, what have I even got here? Yeah, I guess Seonji, I kind of felt bad for him a bit, because he says this line when he goes to Anthy and Utena's house to kind of talk to Anthy. He says, "I don't understand. Didn't you devote yourself to me completely when we were engaged?" And then Anthy says, "Yes, but that's in the past. Our engagement is over now. Please forget about me." I know, it's kind of sad. Like, I think he did actually like her in a way, even though he is kind of just a, I don't know, a typical womanizing, like, person where it felt like he just chose her because she's just one of many women who he will, like, fall in love with, but it seems he really liked her, so it's interesting. So that's Seonji. The other thing we've got is we get more roses in the corners of the panel, so we get 4 roses, right? We get the pink ones when Utena is walking to school and all the girls are looking at her in awe and are blushing. We get another pink one when Utena makes it to the top of the dueling arena, so just showing her. So maybe that's Anthy seeing her. That could be what it is, Anthy's perspective of Utena. Another love kind of thing. We get a white one with Toga in one of his scenes, which tracks because there's a student council member. Again, we get a blue one with Mickey. And Juri is in the background, but Mickey is kind of the focus of that shot, so it probably is just blue because of his hair. We get like a funny like gag one where Choo Choo's one is just a bunch of spinning bananas in the corners rather than roses. And now, actually, this is an interesting one. At the end of the duel, when the power of Dios comes down to Utena, we get a big white rose when they're fusing. Like when he is going into her spirit or whatever. So to me, this implies that all of these small roses we're seeing in the corners of the screen are somehow like related to him, because when he went and joined into her, it was like a big giant rose, like spinning and taking up their bodies. So I think just this meta like structure of having the 4 roses spinning in certain scenes in the corners, which the characters can't see, and it's not in the world, it's just for us, the viewer. I feel like it is like something symbolic of Akio and his just involvement in all of this. And in terms of the duel again, so continuing from there, I love the animation of Utena grabbing the sword from Anthy's chest, and just the like bright white and the shining and the like really like detailed animation where they're like going at, I don't know, a high frame rate. Like it just looks so good. So that's, in terms of episode 2, that's everything I've got. Now there is one more thing I wanted to talk about a little bit, which is just me trying to figure out like types of stories that there are out there. Because Utena is a strange type of story where the plot doesn't matter. Like you can watch it and not pay attention to the plot and you will probably have the same experience, or like just an equally valid experience as someone who goes and cares about the plot and tries to piece it all together. Like it just really isn't that relevant. So I tried to like break it down into what type of stories there are. So there's some that focus, well, not even just types of stories. Like I've written some examples of how you can interpret Utena, like the show. So you can interpret it from a literal plot and lore kind of perspective. And this is kind of stemming from a little bit of episode 3, which I have seen, but I'm not talking about in this video just because it's so long. That one literal interpretation is that Mickey is playing the piano, but feels like he's missing some piece of the song that he's trying to play. Now, a character interpretation could be that Mickey is missing the connection he had with his sister growing up. So it's like one step removed from the literal interpretation, but it's still like a in-story character kind of thing. Then there's like a symbolic or like slightly meta kind of way of storytelling, which is that the piano represents the bonds between siblings. Then if you take it one step further, there's also a thematic kind of type of storytelling in this scene, which is that the theme of family defining who you are. So Utena kind of really focuses on this like character, symbolic, thematic, meta kind of stuff. And the literal and the plot and the lore, to me, just it isn't like logically consistent as we go on. And it's really not the focus of the show. But I really do like it for the 3 things it kind of does emphasize with the character, symbols, themes. So yeah, that's my ranting about the first 2 episodes of Revolutionary Girl Utena. I like it probably more than I did the first time, just because I kind of know what kind of show it is, and I'm more familiar with the music and stuff, and I like watching it. But I don't think I've really understood anything more than I did last time. I may have noticed a few more subtle things, like the symbols of the roses, and I don't know, a few like the sunlit garden, but overall I think I'm still very confused, and I'm looking forward to watching more. So see you next time, I guess.